Most construction companies don't struggle because of bad projects. They struggle because their system is broken. And when they finally get software, they expect that the software is going to fix everything. But here's the truth. The problem isn't JobTread. The problem is implementation of JobTread. And in today's video, I'll show you the 5 mistakes that silently destroy profit and exactly how to fix them. JobTread alone doesn't organize your company. And in fact, when you get it, it's going to expose your company. If your workflow is unclear, your team becomes confused. If your costing is weak, your reports lie. So let's fix the foundation first. If you don't know, I'm Philip Sessions, founder of Refined VA, where we help home remodelers and new construction builders build out their JobTread so it actually works for them instead of against them. And I want to share with you the 5 mistakes that we commonly see. And so the very first mistake that we see oftentimes when we're starting to help builders implement JobTread, that there's no workflow planning before setup. Most contractors just get in there and they just start to create statuses. Estimate, pending, approved, active, started, ongoing, and nobody knows what to do next. There's just a couple of statuses in there, and where do we put this, and what's the nuances of all of those? What does that mean? And while it's great you're starting to use it, it's still confusing because there's no clear workflow for how you work that project through each of those statuses. And why this hurts your workflow is that a stage must trigger an action, not describe a feeling. And so a better setup for your workflow would be lead, to site visit, to estimating, to proposal sent, to approve, to pre-construction, to in progress, to punch list, and then finally closed. When I talked about this, it actually explained how your company is most likely running, not just that things were active, that were getting started, that it was ongoing. It said what stage your project was in. And sure, you can add a lot more, but this is a simple workflow that you could plug in right now, and we see a lot of contractors not doing that. The second mistake that we commonly see is poor job costing structure. And to be quite frank, this is probably the #1 thing actually killing your profit. And speaking of that, when we were actually working on setting up one of our clients' accounts, they were talking to us about, how they got 30% across the board for margin or markup, and then they talked about margin, and they were talking about margin as if it was markup. And if you don't understand the difference between markup and margin, think about I'll give you an example. You sell something for $150 that cost you $100. So that is a 50% markup, but it's only a 33% margin. So there's a big difference between markup and margin, first of all. But this client that we were dealing with, they were like, oh yeah, we've got 30% across the board. And we go in and we look at their labor rate, and they only had it set at 20%. And think about how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars that they've lost out on if they were blindly following that markup, saying, oh, well, I guess that's good enough, and they just put that in. And that's how they sent out their estimate, because they didn't actually take into account anything else or make any modifications. And I realize that you can do that, but if they just blindly followed that, they lost out on a lot of money. But going more into job costing, most companies tend to keep this way too simple. And by all means, if you're going to use a system, go in there and start using it. So I'm not saying that you're wrong for only using cost codes like material, labor, and other little miscellaneous things like that, such as only plumbing, like high level, electrical, and that's not really job costing. So how we fix this is we go in and we get very specific on what that is, and we go dive into the trades. So from a high level view, you need to have site prep, concrete, framing, electrical, plumbing. List out all the different trade services, and underneath each of those you're going to have a cost code that goes within each of those, so you can specifically tie each cost item to that overall cost code. And by doing this, you're able to see more accurately where your money's actually leaking at, or where you're actually being profitable at. The third common mistake that we see is no team training. Oftentimes the owner, they decided they're gonna go to this new software, they're gonna try and implement it, and they're trying to run all the projects in the company and try and get the whole team to go on the software, and it's not utilized at all. And what does your team do? They just say the system doesn't work because they don't know how the system works at all. And so the fix that you have to have is training your team up. We offer training, JobTread offers training, and there's plenty of ways to get them trained up. The certifications inside JobTread, while they're great, they give you a lot of basic foundations, they're not enough. So you have to invest in your team through time, through paying for training to get them trained up in their specific roles. They can't be a master of all of JobTread. You need to get them trained up in their specific role, and then you as the business owner can fill in those gaps, or you can come talk to us about how we can fill in those gaps that your company may not have filled. And just for some examples of things that we've helped businesses out with to get some structure is that your foreman should be in charge of things like daily logs and time, and really anybody on the site should be able to put things into those daily logs. But overall, your foreman should be in charge of that. An admin could be in charge of invoicing and purchase orders to make sure that those are going through and you're actually getting money in. And then your project manager will be focused on the budgets, change orders, and the overall schedule. And just those three examples are where people can plug into JobTread on your team. When you put these people in these specific roles, they can now be responsible for that portion of JobTread, allowing you to plug in on the other places until you can get people into place there. The fourth common mistake that we see is overcomplicating automations. At first, you're trying to automate every single thing. You think that everything needs to be automated because you have this ability. And that's not the case at all. Keep it simple before you try and completely automate things, especially with AI now. I see all the time in the JobTread Pros group where people are talking about plugging AI in and do this, that, and the other. Get JobTread running first. Get your systems in place first, because AI and JobTread are just going to overcomplicate everything if you're not used to using software and if you don't have a great system in place for your business in the first place. So 3 automations that we always recommend is starting with status change alerts. When you go from, for instance, when the plumbing is finished, you can give a status email to your client to say, hey, plumbing's finished, or hey, electrical's finished, or hey, we just did all the rough-in, whatever. You can tell your clients that by having a simple automation just to give a status update on the phase your project is in. The second thing is change order approvals. When a change order comes in, that's your trigger. Change order happened, and once it's finally approved, you can send a notification out saying change order approved. So that way your project manager who's already involved in that will get that notification. Your client will get that notification, but then your site supervisor, foreman, whatever you call them in your company will also have that notification that they've got the green light to move forward. And the third one, invoice reminders. Nobody likes to keep reminding people. Everybody always forgets to do that. It's a thing that, again, nobody likes to do. So make the automation do that. Those are 3 simple automations that you can do so you don't create a bunch of confusion when you're getting started with JobTread. And number 5 is no system review process. Most of the companies we've seen, they set it up a year, 2, 3 years ago, and they never touched it again. And as they needed new cost codes or cost items, they just threw them in there. And next thing you know, you've got 2,000 cost items that you're not even using a quarter of those. And so you need to make sure that you're doing reviews, because otherwise things are going to get muddy. And we know right now that JobTread only has 10 workflows. So if you're getting started on workflows, maybe you created one that was so simple that it's now been added to a more complex one, but now you're out of workflows. So you need to be reviewing your processes and your JobTread to make sure that it stays clean. So our suggestion is to do a monthly 30-day review. Are all the stages clear? Is everything in each of the stages where it needs to be? Or did you lose that job and you forgot to put it out there? Or maybe the job was actually completed, but you forgot to take it out of a stage. Are your reports actually useful? Do they even make sense? Are the right people being able to see them? Can't tell you how many times we've seen people with dashboards with bad information or information that was only relevant for the business owner and the salespeople, but everybody and their mother inside JobTread can see it. And then also, which you should be doing regardless of if you have JobTread or not, is where'd you lose profit in the job? Where did you make profit in the job? But checking for your profit and losses within each of the jobs inside of JobTread. And so by doing this review, you are starting to set yourself up as running like a bigger business organization. And most likely when you do these reviews in your first month, I bet you'll see jobs that you thought that were profitable that weren't actually profitable. Something you might see in the second month. And so when you notice that in your second month, you'll probably start charging properly. And you'll probably start realizing, hey, we probably need to even go up on prices even more because you're seeing more of a profit, but maybe it's still not enough. But more importantly, you're probably just pricing correctly. And you may have clients push back, and that's okay. But by month 3 of doing these reviews, you'll realize that you were never overpriced. You were under tracking. The system didn't increase your prices. It just gave you a reality check of what your prices needed to be. And here's the thing, construction companies don't fail because they lack the right tools. They fail because they try to implement a software on their own and it gets out of order. And it creates disorder in your business. Softwares can be a superpower and supercharge your business if you have structure, but they can also completely destroy your business and create chaos if you don't have structure in your business before you implement the software. So if you're currently setting up JobTread or struggling with your implementation, don't try to figure it out alone. Subscribe to our channel and I'll help you build a system that actually makes your construction business predictable and profitable.